originally a German-based company, and we started in the early 1980s with production automation software, and we were commissioned by Alcatel and IKEA, who were some of our current customers, to develop some backup scripts that eventually turned into, almost a product to back up some of their mission-critical data in their warehouses. So in the early 90s, the decision was made to turn that into an actual product and bring that to market. And so that was done in 1992. And in the early this century, we rewrote the program from the ground up, and that is the current version of SEP that people are using today. So it's an enterprise-level backup software. We have a few unique capabilities that kind of distinguish us in the market. The first one overall is our performance. We're able to do multi-streaming. So we're actually able to back up multiple streams of data to a single media device. What that means to our customers in the real world is a pretty good increase in performance. We see customers going, their backup windows going from several days down to several hours. And that's really pretty common.
I'm going to interrupt you here for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have gone through every setting in the top right corner, so if needed, maybe give me a little better pointer as far as exactly where it's at.
Yeah, sure. So up in the top, you got File, Edit, and then there's Share, and there should be Share My Desktop. It's all.
Okay, so on the left. Sorry, I thought you had said top right.
Yep. Let's see here.
Okay.
Okay, I can see your screen now. Perfect.
That works better. All right.
There we go.
All right, perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thanks, this is when I was going through, and sorry, guys.
Yeah, no worries. That's great. Thanks, Shane. So anyway, I was just kind of going over the multi-streaming technology, how that increases performance, and overall, really, that's probably our biggest product differentiator, just increase in performance. We see, even in environments that don't have the latest and greatest hardware, we still see increases in performance, 50, 60, sometimes 70%. We've worked with some customers where we've seen up to a 98% reduction in backup time. We've a couple of customers in particular, their backup times were 3.5 days. We brought their backup windows down to 2.5 hours. Some other ones were, 4.5 days. We brought those down to about 4 hours. So the level of performance is really astonishing. Some of the other things that I would, focus on are just the fact that we support such a wide range of products. We see that most companies we work with aren't just using one solution anymore these days to meet their backup and disaster recovery needs. Most people that we work with initially have 2, 3, 4 different products in place to meet their needs. And so we're able to kind of bring everything under one umbrella, standardize everything, and just enable them to manage everything from one console. I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Shane, let him talk a little bit more about the specific things that we do support, and just get it a little bit more into detail. And then, like I said, we'll have a quick break for Q&A, and please ask any questions you guys would like. I would definitely like this to be as interactive as possible, and I will go ahead and turn it over to you, Shane.
Okay, and you covered a lot of the stuff, so a little bit of this will be review as we go through here, but you, of course, did a wonderful job as always. So I will have some questions for you going through here, and just so I can help you clarify some of the great things that happen here. But to start with, product integration, and it starts at the bottom. You can see that we work on either Linux or Windows. It doesn't matter. We have the same console. It looks the same, and the install is pretty simple on either platform. the operating systems we support, the database modules, the application layer modules that we have. This is a partial list, not complete. If you see something or if you do not see something on there that you definitely are interested, contact us. We will talk to you about it and see if there's any issues, but we support quite a bit of stuff. There's more than what's listed here, so don't hesitate to call and get some details. And we will definitely talk about the hypervisors and bare metal options that are over on the left and give you a little more details because we have some unique features in those. The install itself, and this install server that is defined here is pretty much a test server that you can bring up. Keep in mind that subsystem you can download and install, use fully functional for 30 days, so you can test it yourself. The server, when you install it, doesn't have to have a lot of memory, does have to have Java for the subserver because that's what we use for the GUI. It will set up the database on 64-bit Linux. You just need to install the binaries and it will still configure the database on 32-bit. It does it for you. And the actual database size that it keeps the information is about 30 to 50 gigs. So it's not going to get very big, even if you have a lot of servers. And if you're testing, this server is going to work fine with just a couple gigs. Obviously, in production, we will help you spec out the server and advise probably a larger server based on the number of servers you have that you're going to be backing up. The hardware itself, we see any hardware that's connected to the server. We do not require that you have additional drivers. If a new product comes out that you want to use, as long as there is a driver for the operating system you're using, we'll support it and we can back it up. You can hook up USB media to the server. We're not going to recommend that as the best backup method because of performance, but you can hook it up and use it for backup media. We can see anything the operating system talks to. Sample network config kind of breaks down some of the components and some of the pieces that we do. Number one that's listed here is the subsystem server itself. And that is the master server that controls everything in the environment. It even controls other subsystem servers. If you have them in the environment, you can manage them all from one server. We'll talk to the SAN, and we can talk to the storage on the SAN that you're using for active access. We also can talk to backup media on the SAN, whether that's disk or tape. Here there's a tape library connected. So you can actually do LAN-free backups using the SAN. So, if you go down, number 5 is a remote site. That can be a T1 or just some sort of communication link that you have to another site. And there's local servers. You can actually isolate the traffic so the backup traffic goes to that remote device server and managed from your central server. The central server takes care of all the controls. It has the database. It has the GUI. The remote device server just looks like media, and you can definitely direct it where it goes. The only thing it sends to the master server is the metadata, which it updates the database so it knows what's gotten backed up. The enhanced performance, when I started talking about this, and this is definitely something that makes us super unique. So I'll actually have you give an example here, Lenai, because I know we definitely have had some great access or reports on this. And basically, we do unparalleled data streams to multiple servers at the same time. You'll hear other guys say we do parallel data streams, great, but they're typically limited to a server. We can actually do this to multiple servers simultaneously. As we grab the data, we place it directly as it comes to the server, so we get extremely good performance. We don't re-index or process the data. We just track it where it's placed and place it down to get super great performance. And I know that we get these every month or two as far as just a huge performance increase. What is something we've done here recently, Lenai, that definitely has gotten some good performance updates?
In particular, there was just worked with another school district probably about 8 weeks ago, probably 2 months ago. They went from 56 hours backup time down to 5.5. They were using, they were using 2 different servers to do their backups. And then we condensed it down to 1 server. And yeah, like I said, their backup time went, I think it was about 55 hours down to about 5.5 hours. There's another school district, actually now it's probably almost a year ago. Seems like it was a couple days ago, but it was a while ago. They were about 49, 50 hours. They went down to 6 hours. Worked with Port of San Diego. They've been a customer for almost a year now. Their backup window was 3.5 days, and they're now down to about 2.5 hours. It's more specifically, their Oracle backup was about, I think, 4.5 hours to do a full backup, and it's down to 40 minutes now. So it's pretty major increases in performance. And we're actually working with a company now, and this is kind of jumping ahead, but we're pretty excited about it. Their current backup, they actually are unable to get current backups because it takes so long. They always time out or something happens, and they calculated their current backup window to be over 100 days to get a full backup. That's how much data they have, and we're currently projecting that we'll get that backup window down to about 15 hours. So it's not done yet. I don't want to speak too soon, but everything's looking really good, and it's pointing in that direction. So we're really excited about that. That'll probably be our largest improvement to date, I think.
That's pretty good. And the first school district you mentioned, they actually were using 2 servers to start with, and you reduced it. It was just the 1 server when you were done. So you actually reduced how much hardware was being used for the backup, and we backed it up in obviously a fraction of the time.
Well, and that's the thing, is they were using 2 servers, so they could basically get 2 streams of backups to cut the time in half. And like we had both said, with our multi-streaming, our minimum our minimum license comes with 5 streams. So you instantly get 5 times the speed as long as there's no bottlenecks in your network, and it can handle that. So you're going to see that performance right off the bat, and it goes up from there. We go up to 250 streams on an enterprise license. So yeah, it was I think their intention in the beginning was to try and get more streams going, so that's why they had those 2 servers in place, and we were just able to do it with 1. So.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something that obviously we're pretty excited about in general whenever we talk to people. It's one of the key factors that people definitely love the software for. So going forward, the bare metal option. And we have a bare metal option where you can back up the server, and it takes the entire server, so you don't have to restore the operating system and an agent to get the restore to happen. You can actually just boot the server from media or USB. It'll go find the backup server and stream the restore back to that hardware. And that's great if you can find the exact same hardware, but if you have a server that's 10 years old and you have to update it, we actually will stream the backup and do a hardware wizard during the restore. So it will update your hardware, update your PAL, update the drivers during that restore to get you on newer hardware. Works awesome to upgrade a system. Also works great to go from physical to virtual, or from virtual back to physical, because almost all virtual platforms have some way to get physical to virtual, but they don't have an easy way to go from virtual back to physical if you have some needs to test it, because vendors saying, oh, that's not working right because it's a virtual system. So it's very nice, and it decreases the restore times because you're now backing up an image, so it can restore the entire system in minutes, where it may have taken hours before you were doing file level restore.
And Shane, if I could jump in real quick too, I actually just had a conversation with someone the other day. It came up that they were using it to basically migrate virtual machines between different hypervisors. So they were using it to go from VMware to Citrix to Hyper-V, and they just said it enabled them to bring up a virtual machine on whatever platform they wanted. It didn't necessarily have to be in the same environment. So not only from physical to virtual and virtual to physical, but also across different virtual platforms as well.
Yes. Very good point. architecture, we talked about the single console. The console looks the same, whether it is on Windows or Linux, so you can move between platforms, and it's Java-based. So you need to have Java 1.6 or higher, but it looks the same on any platform. And that one console manages everything in the environment, all servers, all remote devices, all media, and it comes with the product. There's not a separate license. There's not some sort of management console you have to buy. We include it as part of the base server, and it manages everything for you. LAN-free backup, we talked about this earlier, but yeah, we talk to the SAN. We can actually back up from the SAN and to the SAN simultaneously to get your backups off the main network and obviously give your users that performance to access things. And that works really well, especially with virtual machines or SAN-based attached devices, because you now can grab things on the background while the users are still accessing them in the foreground and not affect their network performance. Virtual environments. We support Zen Server, VMware, Hyper-V, open source Zen, anything that's an LVM snapshot basically right there, and it works with the agents on the system. So we're able to talk to the tools that are installed with your virtual platform and use those tools to quiesce the file system. So it's all VSS based as far as getting file level consistency, works with Hyper-V, ESX, Zen Server. On Zen Server specifically, we can do a hot and warm backup, which the warm backup allows us to grab the memory state of the virtual machine. So when you do a restore, it does not change the MAC address and GUID of the server. It actually restores the system as is, and you don't have to relicense or reactivate the machine once you do a restore, saving you some time. With VMware, obviously, again, we can grab everything. It's all agentless for all of these, and we work with VMware on the VCB proxy. We can install an agent direct on the host, or we can even talk to the API and get the functionality that the API has to get that information from the backup. When doing a backup with a virtual system, and this is going to be a hot backup, users are still accessing the system, we'll go through and we create a snapshot of that system, mount that snapshot for backup, and run a backup of that entire system. So people are still using the system through the snapshot. We're backing up that system that's been snapshotted in the background. When it's done, it unmounts it, recommits it back to the original machine, and allows the system to move forward. So you don't have to worry about snapshots being left out there, hanging, and causing corruption or causing growth that gets so large it can actually run you out of disk space. If you run into systems where you've done snapshots that don't clean up, you will have run into the issue of, oh, what's this huge file out here? It's bigger than the original virtual machine. It's what will happen with snapshots, and they get cleaned up even if the backup gets canceled or there's a problem. It goes back through as long as it can talk to the machine and cleans up that snapshot and recommits it. For a virtual backup, this is just a standard virtual backup. We talk to the cluster itself. So once we talk to the cluster, we can find all of the virtual guests that are on that backup. So here's an example where we're going through, talking to the master server. It's finding where the virtual guest is, and as soon as we get that virtual guest, we start a stream from that guest, so it's isolated to just that host. That isolated stream is then backed up, and when we get ready to restore it, we can restore it to any of the hosts that are in that cluster. It doesn't have to be back to the same machine. In fact, we can restore it to another cluster or an individual host somewhere else. So if you've got a cluster sitting at a DR site that you have and you're wanting to do backups, you can restore it back over to the DR site, have that available as a hot standby if something were to happen, and you can even schedule that to run every night where it backs up that machine and does a restore and keeps those in sync. We have clients using this for DR purposes without having to pay for high-end replication pieces on disk or other things. So it's a very clean way to keep a DR site in sync from just doing a backup, and you still get a copy of that server as you do it. environments, we talked to Oracle. We were talking about how we increased some Oracle backup times considerably at the Port of San Diego, and we can talk to the database, table space, data file level. We work with the XML archiving or wizard base, and we do all this using RMAN. So it's natively talking to RMAN on the Oracle server, and RMAN then does the calls for the backup. So that means anytime you do any Oracle updates, you know you're getting the latest tools to quiesce your database, and it's going to be quiesced as it's supposed to be during backup. So you don't have to do any updates with SEP every time you do an Oracle update, because we're actually just doing a call to RMAN, and that manages the backup for you. In Exchange environments, we can talk to Exchange 2003, 2007, 2010. When we do restores, we can restore to the database. You can do a recovery database if you want, or directly to the database. We also go to a mailbox instance or a message instance for things that you need to get back. So you don't have to use a recovery database if you do not want to. SQL environments, we use the same agent for the SQL environment that we have for your Windows server. So when you install your Windows agent, it's just a license option. It becomes activated as soon as you add the license, and we can see that SQL database without adding anything else besides the agent you have there. BSS aware can grab a point-in-time restore, can do a point-in-time restore to your database or cross-restore into another instance. So you can go look at the data, grab the data you need, and put it back into the original database without having to take that original database down just to try to fix something that somebody deleted for a couple users that you just want to see, okay, where was that at before? SAP, if you're running SAP in your environment, we are very close partners with SAP. We've been working together with them for well over 15 years, highest level certification of any third-party vendor. If you are running SAP, I highly recommend you get in touch with us. Let us talk to you about what you're doing for backups and how we can help you, because we definitely can make some performance increases and show you some of the pieces we do with integration and support for SAP. And Novell environments. Novell environments, we are agentless. We actually just use Novell TSA. So you don't have to install an agent on every single one of your Novell servers. OES, NetWare, we support both of them. We support older versions of NetWare, and we will even go through a migration, as we were talking about earlier, and where we can actually do a backup from an old NetWare box into a new OES box. So NetWare 4 can restore into OES 11. It'll help you migrate those files with the trustee rights, and you don't have to go from 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 11. So it saves you several steps in time. There's no client needed for this because, like we said, it's talking to TSA. You do have to have one data mover. We'll install that. It takes seconds to get it installed and running, and you do use SLP to talk to the servers. The data mover itself goes out, uses Snitter, talks to the TSA, and you have to have the TSA loaded. So TSA-FS, TSA-FS-GW, TSA-IF, TSA-NDS is what's used to get that. So you just have to have that loaded. You now have a way to back up that server. Backing up in a cluster environment, and we'll just go through some of the backup setups that you can do, but we can back up your cluster. It sees your cluster objects, so it's not going to have to talk to the host. It actually understands the cluster object. So if you have several nodes with several cluster resources running, when you go into your backup window, you'll see the cluster and like the volumes that are being clustered. So that volume that's being shared is just a cluster object that you can select and do a backup with. The setup of that, you can put your data mover on the subsystem server itself if you want. You have to have OES Linux running for the data mover. So OES Linux, if you have your subsystem server on OES Linux, you can make that also your data mover. If you have a subsystem server running on Windows, all you have to do is install your data mover on an OES Linux box somewhere. And that then becomes your data mover to talk to all the TSAs. In fact, if you have a SAN that you have your data on, you can make your nodes themselves be data movers and talk to storage that's on your SAN and giving you LAN-free backups. So you can now transfer your backup data on the SAN, gaining performance like we were talking about earlier. We'll take a moment here, give everybody a chance to actually ask some questions, and we will answer those really quick.
So if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them through on the Q&A and chat. I'm going to see if there's any right now.
And one other thing I'd like to add to that too. Like I said in the beginning, I can see we do have quite a few actually current customers on with us as well. So thanks for joining us, guys. And if there's anything specific that you guys would like to see in future webinars, go ahead and let us know that too. That's always great feedback for us to know what you guys are interested in. You know, what motivates you guys to join our webinars, and you know, we'd like to accommodate that as much as possible. So if you have any of that feedback too, that'd be great.
One question came through about price. Just, is it possible to give us some ballpark figures on the cost?
Yeah, quick ballpark figures. Well, overall, we come in at about 40% of industry average for enterprise software. If folks are familiar with backup exec pricing, it's pretty comparable to backup exec pricing. It's also a similar licensing model as well. So I hope that kind of answers questions.
Okay. There was another question too that came through. Says, is it a change on the version of Java that is required on Linux? Before Sun Java had to be installed instead of IBM Java.
Sun Java is preferred, so it's best if you can use Sun Java. You can actually have IBM Java and Sun Java installed simultaneously, and you just have to have a link defined on which programs are using which. So you can leave the previous Java version installed, but yeah, we do prefer it. We have gotten it to work with IBM Java. It's just you have to define your links and configure that.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's all the questions I see right now.
Okay, cool. So can everybody see the server and map system drive right now?
Yep. We see that, great.
Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and map drive to, we have two servers here. We have an OES 11 box, and we actually have three. OES 11, Network 6.5, and an OES 2. We're going to use the OES 2 server as our backup server and data mover. We're going to use the network box, which has the current file system on it, and we're going to use the OES 11 as the new server we're going to migrate to. And we do not have subsystem installed yet. So we're going to go ahead and install it, and then get a backup and a restore here within about the next 15-20 minutes. So let me connect, map go drive, and this is the OES 11 box, which has nothing on it yet. And let's go ahead and map an O drive of the network server. So map drive, and we'll map network to N, since we have OES mapped to O. So OES 11, go to the tree, resources, network 6.1, and map it. And we can see we've got a data and a home here. Nothing over here, and we'll just look at the data directory really quick, and properties, netware. We have a group assigned to it, and we have a little bit of data inside of it. So we got a PDF and another directory that has a couple directories in it. So let's go ahead, and now that we know we've got everything talking to those, and go to our OES box. So this is OES 2 SP3. And what we're going to do And I'm going to make this window bigger, or the text bigger, so we can see this. And view. All right. Is that more readable? I don't know. So now you can see that right there, and tell me if you can read that or not.
Yeah, no, that looks great.
Okay. So in the downloads directory, we have on here just downloaded already. Subsystem server, we have 403, 405. We'll install 405. We've got the data mover client, and we have Java. So if we just look at Java, I know somebody had mentioned this earlier, what is preferred. We have an older version of Java on here. And this older version of Java is actually being used for iManager. And you can see IBM Java is running. What we're going to do is we're just going to also install Sun Java. So we're going to set that up really quick. And we may have Sun Java already configured. Yeah, and the link is set up. So we should actually be fine. We're going to just go back. And since we just have the one link for that, we're going to run the Sesame server install. So I downloaded it already. It takes about 2 minutes for the download. The file itself is 60 meg. So you can see it's a pretty small download, pretty quick to do. And we're just going to run an RPM installer. And it'll go check and make sure that it can see our Sun Java link, and it obviously does. If it just saw the IBM Java link, we would actually have to create a link, or we'd have to update Java to the IBM version because it's older, and then we'd have to create a link for it to use. So it sees the Sun version, and it runs the install. During this install, it, of course, unpacks the server file and goes ahead and it's installing the database and setting up a database instance. After it's got that done, it's going to go ahead and create a pool, a data store area to do a test backup to. It'll go ahead and run a test backup of its database. It'll do a test restore of its database. So it'll actually set up a backup and restore and run it right now just to make sure the system is working and it's talking to the data store correctly. And then it will go ahead and install the GUI and launch it for us. And as soon as it launches it, at the bottom left-hand corner in the status window, it'll tell us if the restore was good and it worked well, or if there was an error and we need to go fix something, and it'll tell us what the problem was. So all this takes place just during this initial install, and it validates that it's completely working at that point in time. So you have pretty good confidence that everything was tested during the install. What we're going to do after we get this up and loaded, and we'll just verify, it says configuration of the drives completed and the restore completed successfully. So this is good, it's done, and we're going to go ahead and want to back up our NetWare server. So that's all it takes for an install. Completely ready. If we look at the components, we will see that we have a test data store already created, running, and if we look at the client, the only thing we're going to see right now is the backup server. So let's go through, and we are going to make this a data mover. So we need to install the Novell client, and it's the exact same install command, UVH, and this is going to be system-the Novell client. Run the install, and done. Just a few seconds right there. Now we can go over here and create a new client. NetWare 658-SEP. This will talk to our NetWare server. We're going to tell it that it's NetWare. and say OK. And okay, it's going to require us to set this right now, which is good. And we need to just enter the login information for our backup user. I'm going to use admin, and this is how it talks to the server. So we don't install an agent, but you do have to authenticate to eDirectory to get the information from the TSA. So we enter the username and password, and we tell it who the data mover is. We installed the data mover on the backup server, so we will say OK. And ask us if we want to create a backup job. So we'll say yes. And we're not going to fill out anything here. We're just going to go ahead and browse the server. Go ahead and make sure we can see it. And we can see our file system. So we're going to go down and select the volume right here, and we'll do a complete backup of the volume. Say OK. It autofills our task name, identifies the backup type, and source. So we're going to say OK, and it should have a backup available for us to run. Now, we saw we did not see eDirectory. We did see the file system, but we should be having a copy of eDirectory running. The problem is that we don't have the TSA loaded. So all I have to do is come over here, load TSA NDS. So we now have the TSA loaded. If I go back and look, new backup task again, go browse it. We didn't install any agents. We didn't make any changes except for loading the TSA. We now have eDirectory. So we can now browse down and back up our eDirectory at this time too if we want. Since we're just going to back up and restore the file system, we will stop right there and go ahead and configure our other server for a restore. So just letting this do a browse, and then we'll set up OES 11 to do that. Also, so cancel. New backup. No new client. Local. New client. And OES 11. We're also going to tell it that this is a NetWare box because we're going to just talk to the TSAs. We, of course, are going to also define our access again. And exact same process on the OES box that we had on the NetWare box. We're just talking to the TSAs and going to do the restore to the volume, the NSS volume that we have configured for it. Do you want to create a backup? Nope, we don't. But let's just make sure we can talk to it. New backup task, and sees the server, sees that it does have Novell services. And our Novell services should look a little different for this NSS volume because we actually have a mount point on our Linux file system for the NSS volume. So we'll see some folders for the Linux mount point, and once we get to our actual volume, we can see that it looks like a volume, and we can see our volume. So our TSA is working. So let's go ahead and just run our backup. Media start. We're going to just launch that, and we'll go to the backup window. This should be pretty quick since we don't have a whole lot of data there, and we get an error. The log doesn't exist, and we get an error, and we get a log error. Let's go look and see what we have. This is the fun of doing live demos. The circular from submitting into the queue. Oh, I selected the wrong data store. Let's go make sure I select the right data store. Back up, immediate start. New pool. Okay. Backup started. And since it's Java, we actually have to turn on Java refresh, and it will go through and show us the job. So this was me because I actually selected a tape drive for the restore. We don't have a tape drive hooked up to this box, so I just had to select our data store, which is this. Now if I come down here to performance, and it looks like our backup is already done, you'll see our overall performance window is right down here in the middle, so we get to see the overall throughput that we're getting for the backup. And the backup ran and finished quite quickly. So we just ran a backup, got everything backed up. If we go back in to our client, we wanted to do the restore. And so let's go ahead and say new restore task. And here's our backup that we just did of our volume. Let's go ahead and tell it that we want to do this instance. If we had been doing a backup, we would actually see one for every single day that we've been backing up here. And we can select complete right there, or just click the volume. And so we have a complete restore of the entire volume. And we're going to change our target. Our target that we backed up from was NetWare. We're going to restore it to OES 11, and we're going to restore it to the NSS, which is under the mount point. So let's go ahead and select down through our file structure, as we saw earlier, the correct volume. And we have that under Media NSS, and it should just show us our volume now is Vol1. Select that, say OK, have that set, and we will say start. So we just told it we want to do a restore. It'll go ahead and create a task for that restore directly under that other client. So we see the task is created, and we can go to our restore windows. And we can see, hey, green, it already did the restore on what we're looking at. So let's just go back to our Windows server that I just jumped past. And we, of course, did a backup here. Let's look and see. I'll do a refresh. And when I do a refresh, our information is there. So if I right-click and do properties on our data volume we did before, NetWare rights, the group that we had assigned is there, the trustee rights that we had assigned is there. Now all we would have to do is go through and actually change our login script to point to the new server. We have all our data over there, and all our rights are already configured. So that's a complete backup restore from not even having such system installed. So a complete install, backup restore from one server to another in, I think we were just under 15 minutes. Any other questions?
You might have been pushing 16 minutes.
Uh-oh. I'll work on that. Maybe if you give me a faster system to do tests on. There we go. There we go.
There we go. Sounds good. Deal. Okay, so any questions on that part of things?
Let's see. I don't see any questions that have come through. Once again, if you have any questions, feel free to put those through on the chat or the Q&A.
Okay. And also to, folks that are currently using SEP that are on right now, see quite a few of you guys. So if there's anything specific you guys would like to see in our future webinars, please let us know that as well. Either send us a direct email. You can put it in the chat right now. That's fine. But yeah, either way, just let us know what you guys would like to see as far as further training or further information on specific products or support for certain things or anything like that. Okay. Anything, Q, or are we getting towards the end here?
Yeah, I don't see any more. So unless there's any other further ones that anyone would like to put through, I think we can go ahead and wrap up.
Okay. Yeah, I think moving forward, if you guys do have any specific questions to your network environments or any challenges that you guys are facing with existing solutions that you're using, please reach out to us. You can email us at info@sepusa.com, and someone will get back in touch with you. You can email Shane or I directly if you would like to, and we'll have those emails up on the screen here. There you go. Or give us a call. If you guys want to chat for 5 minutes, that's fine. We can answer any questions that you guys have. Be more than happy to help you out with that. A lot of times we'll set up a little proof of concept environment for folks just to get started and really get a feel for the product and setting up tasks and adding servers to different groups and all that kind of stuff. And, the best part about that is you really get to see what kind of throughput and performance you're going to see in your environment. So, I know you can get on a webinar and we can sit here and tell you how great everything is and that we have a perfect solution, but until you guys really see it in your environment, it's hard to really tell what the benefits are going to be and what actual performance increase you'll see. So I would invite you to do some testing and, see what that really does look like and see what the numbers are and contact us if you'd like some assistance with that. So again, Q, thank you very, very much for having us again. It's always a pleasure to be on your webinar series. And to all of our current customers on, thanks for joining us. And for everyone who's on that we haven't spoken with before, thanks for your time. We appreciate it and look forward to hearing from you.